Continuation. The new leader of Iran showed on the very first day that the military regime in Tehran is ready to fight to the last. The appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the new supreme leader of Iran indicates that hardline radicals have taken control of the country, while moderate and reformist factions have found themselves isolated. Moreover, it became known today that it was the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that pressured the assembly of Ayatollahs in Iran to choose Mojtaba as the leader. And immediately after his appointment, the IRGC officially pledged allegiance to the new leader. Already today in Tehran, it was stated that the new leader will not back down in the war with the US and Israel, because 56-year-old Khamenei has a reason for blood revenge, since during the Israeli strike on February 28th, he lost not only his father, but also his mother, wife, and son. In this episode, we will talk about who the new leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, is and why under him the war with the United States of America will become even more brutal. My name is Alexei Peci. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave any comment under this episode, and subscribe to my Telegram channel Peci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, on Monday, Iran appointed Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the supreme leader of Iran. This is a signal that supporters of a hardline radical course remain in power. And in the statement from the Assembly of Ayatollahs it says, quote, "The Assembly of Experts by a majority vote appointed Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei as the third leader of the sacred system of the Islamic Republic of Iran." This position gives Mojtaba the right to have the final say in absolutely all state affairs of the Islamic Republic. But there is a lot of interesting information about the new leader of Iran. For a long time he was in the shadows, but for many years there were rumors that behind the scenes of Iranian politics he wielded significant influence. Well, for example, diplomatic cables from the United States published on WikiLeaks in the late 2000s described him as a behind-the-scenes force, a person whom many in the ruling circles considered capable and decisive. And he was influential specifically among the militants of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. More precisely, he was always beneficial to them because he would do as the military commanders said, not the other way around. It was specifically the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps that insisted Mojtaba should become Iran's new leader, although he didn't really have the right to do so. And here's an interesting point. The thing is, it was only at the age of 30 that Mojtaba went to Qom. Qom is a holy city considered one of the most important centers of Shia theology, where he went to continue his religious education. No one could even bring themselves to call him a clergyman, because usually such people go to receive religious education much, much earlier. Moreover, Mojtaba didn't even put it on himself until he was 30 years old. And even in the last days, in the last week, Mojtaba remained a mid-ranking clergyman. And this was a direct obstacle even for being nominated for the position of Supreme Leader. That's why the announcement process was delayed and Mojtaba was suddenly being called an Ayatollah. And that's the highest spiritual title, although he wasn't actually an Ayatollah. But people will do anything just to get power. Let me explain a very important nuance here, an Eastern nuance. In the religious education system, receiving the honorary title of Ayatollah is considered a sign of a person's extensive and profound knowledge, and it is seen as one of the requirements and conditions for choosing a future leader. That's why it's very difficult to call Mojtaba an Ayatollah, but in recent days, for some reason, everyone in the public sphere suddenly calls him an Ayatollah, even though he is still a mid-level clergyman. It's like a sergeant suddenly becoming a general. But now, the most important thing. Mojtaba was brought to power specifically by the militants of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The roots of their cooperation go back to the early 2000s. During the 2005 Iranian presidential election, he was accused of involving the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to interfere in the election. As president, the person he needed, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, And I recommend remembering this case because we will come back to it a little later in this episode. So as not to confuse you, just remember it. In 2005, Mojtaba Khamenei helped Mahmoud Ahmadinejad win the election. The IRGC militants didn't just intimidate people there, they also handed out money to religious groups so that they would support the right candidate. 4 years later, Mojtaba's candidate Ahmadinejad won the election again, which led to mass protests in Iran in 2009. Moreover, after the 2009 elections, the two reformist candidates who opposed Mojtaba were simply arrested, and that was it. That's why now everyone expects Mojtaba to continue his father's tough policies. And some also believe that a man who lost his father, mother, wife, and even his son as a result of US and Israeli strikes is unlikely to make concessions under Western pressure. Overall, the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain Ali Khamenei, as the new supreme leader of Iran indicates that the hardline radical faction has ultimately taken control of the country. Meanwhile, the moderate and reformist factions have found themselves in total isolation. That's it, no reforms. Security forces are holding on to power. Tehran will not back down in its war with the US, and the 56-year-old Khamenei will take a confrontational stance toward the West that's already clear. Donald Trump has already said Mojtaba Khamenei is unacceptable to him. But the rise of a conservative long associated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps shows that Trump's attempts to intimidate the Iranian regime and force it to surrender have not yet succeeded. The rise to power of the younger Khamenei suggests a continuation of the same strategy, namely repression at home and resistance on the international stage. And here's the thing, the official closest to Mojtaba is Ali Larijani, the highest-ranking official in the country responsible for national security. So it is he who in recent days has been giving orders for strikes against the Persian Gulf countries, and is also responsible for making sure that a new wave of protests does not break out in the country. It was he, Larijani, who in January led the bloody suppression of protests which resulted in the deaths of thousands of Iranians. And this same Larijani also insisted on the selection of Mojtaba. And here it should be noted that Mojtaba Khamenei enjoys strong support within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, especially among the younger and more radical generation. And do you know why the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is so fiercely in favor of Mojtaba Khamenei? Remember those very presidential elections in 2005 that I mentioned a little earlier? Back then, Mojtaba helped the little-known Mahmoud Ahmadinejad win the presidential election. At that time, he was practically a nobody. And do you know which organization Ahmadinejad came from? That's right, from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It was during that period that the IRGC gained unlimited power in the country. That's why now the whole puzzle has come together. And you know, Iranian strikes can't be considered some isolated acts of retaliation by a dying regime right now. No. It's more of a strategy of horizontal escalation, meaning an attempt to change the stakes in the conflict by expanding it both in space and in time. And this strategy allows the weaker party in the conflict to force the stronger one to change their plans. And here I would remind you that Vietnam became a trap for the Americans precisely because the Vietnamese groups responded to the power of the American Air Force with horizontal escalation. On the other hand, it is important to understand that when a regime survives after losing its leader, as happened in Iran, it must very quickly demonstrate its resilience by expanding the conflict. The regime must show through horizontal escalation that it has become united and stronger with the new leader. Therefore, unfortunately, the war in the Middle East is likely to last for a long time. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel financially. You can support us with your donation or subscription using the links and details in the description of this video, or by using the QR code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.